Here's the truth very few ever face. A man can rise early, work late, put in a lifetime of effort, and still end with nothing. Why? Because hard work by itself has never guaranteed success. If it did, the hardest working people in the world would be the richest. But they're not. In this message, I will show you why most people spend their whole lives working and end up with nothing, and how you can make sure you are not one of them. You'll learn why labor without direction or purpose leads only to exhaustion, why effort without goals produces nothing lasting, and why the mind, not the muscles, creates wealth and security. You'll see how a simple shift from working blindly to working deliberately can mean the difference between slavery to wages and a life of freedom. And by the end, you will know the forgotten disciplines that guarantee your work produces progress, not just survival. Think for a moment about the people you know. How many of them have worked faithfully for years, maybe decades, and yet they live paycheck to paycheck? How many hope that simply putting in the hours day after day would one day bring them freedom, only to find that nothing changed? This is the story of the majority. They mistake effort for progress. They confuse activity with achievement. They think that because they are busy, they are moving forward, but they are not. And the saddest part is, they could have been free, they could have been secure. The difference between those who end with nothing and those who end with abundance is not luck, not talent, not chance. It is a simple but powerful law that most people never apply. And that is what we will uncover today. In the time we share together, I'm going to take you deep into the reason why most people end up working all their lives and finishing with nothing, and more importantly, how you can avoid their fate. We'll uncover the myths about hard work, the truth about where wealth and freedom really come from, and the disciplines that separate the majority from the successful few. We'll talk about fear and conformity, about goals and imagination, about the law of cause and effect that never fails. Along the way, I'll share examples, stories, and challenges that will make these truths unforgettable. And I'll give you a clear plan, one you can begin today, to ensure that your years of work add up to something meaningful, something lasting, something secure. Stay with me, because once you see the difference, you will never again mistake labor for progress, and you will never again work all your life only to end with nothing. Here's something most people completely miss, though it explains more about life than any statistic you'll ever read. If you take 100 young men, all of them starting out equal at the age of 25, filled with hope, ambition, energy, all believing that life will work out for them, and then follow them for 40 years until they reach 65, here's what you'll find. Out of that 100, 1 will be rich, 4 will be financially independent, 5 will still be working because they have to, and the remaining 90 will be broke, dependent on relatives, on social systems, or on the charity of others just to survive. Let that sink in. Out of 100 men, only 5 find independence, and only 1 reaches wealth. The other 95 end with nothing. Now think about that for a moment. These men did not begin planning to fail. At 25, they had every intention of making something of themselves. They were full of ideas, they were eager to get started, they believed that hard work would take them where they wanted to go. And yet, by 65, after 40 years of labor, most had nothing. Why? Because they confused activity with achievement. They mistook mere motion for progress. They believed that working hard, day after day, would guarantee success. But it never has. It never will. Hard work alone is not enough. And here's the picture that ought to arrest your mind. 95 men, after a lifetime of effort, ending up with empty hands. Why does this happen? It happens because most men simply drift. They do what others are doing. They conform. They follow the crowd, and the crowd is going nowhere. They put in their time, but they put in no thought. They labor, but they labor without direction. They sweat, but they sweat without vision. And the result is inevitable. 40 years of effort with nothing to show. Now let's set the stakes. If you do not understand the reason why 95 out of 100 fail, you are almost certain to be among them. The odds alone should be enough to wake you. If you do what the majority does, you will end where the majority ends, broke, dependent, disappointed. But if you learn what separates the few from the many, what makes one rich, 4 independent and 95 failures, then you can choose differently. You can break away from the drift and live deliberately. So let me ask you, which group do you intend to be in? Do you see yourself among the 95 who end with nothing, or among the 5 who live with independence, or perhaps even the one who reaches wealth? That choice is being made right now, not at 65, not when you retire, but today in the thoughts you hold, the goals you set, the direction you choose. The future is written in present decisions. And if you will not decide, the decision will be made for you, and you will drift with the 95. But if you will take hold of the law, if you will think, plan, and act with purpose, you will separate yourself from the crowd and claim the future that so few ever reach. Now let's look closely at the reason why 95 out of 100 men fail, because it isn't lack of intelligence and it isn't lack of opportunity. The world is filled with intelligent men who never rise above mediocrity and opportunity. It surrounds us all the time. The real reason is far simpler and far more tragic. It is conformity. Most people never decide what they want. They never chart their own course. They simply look around to see what everyone else is doing, and then they do the same thing. They drift with the current, never asking where it leads, never questioning whether the crowd knows where it is going. And because the majority fails, those who follow the majority are almost certain to fail with them. Think of sheep being herded into a pen. They move together, shoulder to shoulder, heads down, each following the one in front of him. None of them stop to ask where the path is leading. None of them stop to look up and see the fence around them. They feel safe in the crowd, but that safety is an illusion. In the end, they all arrive at the same destination, not because they chose it, but because they never chose at all. And that is exactly how most people live their lives. They go to school because others do, they take jobs because others do, they spend their money because others do, they retire because others do. They never step back and ask, is this the path I want? Is this where I want to end up? They mistake conformity for security, and in the end, they find themselves trapped, just like the sheep in the pen. Now, let's set the stakes. If you allow conformity to guide you, your future is already decided and not by you. You are surrendering your power to the crowd, and the crowd is going nowhere. You may feel safe because you are surrounded by others, but when the years pass and you see where the path has led, you will realize that safety was the most dangerous illusion of all. For the crowd cannot think, the crowd cannot plan, the crowd cannot succeed. Only individuals can do that. And the few who rise above, the few who claim wealth, independence, and fulfillment, are always the ones who broke away from the drift and chose their own direction. Here's the truth. Standing apart takes courage. It is easier to blend in. It is easier to follow orders, to do what is expected, to remain unnoticed. Fear of criticism keeps most people silent. Fear of failure keeps them from acting. Fear of standing alone keeps them in the herd. But the price of that conformity is enormous. It is a wasted life, a future that ends with nothing. And the reward for breaking away, for daring to think and act for yourself, is equally enormous. It is freedom, it is growth, it is the life most men dream of, but never reach. So let me ask you, are you drifting with the 95, or are you willing to break away and stand with the few? Do you follow the crowd because it is comfortable, or do you have the courage to walk your own path, even if it means walking alone for a time? The answer will decide your future, because the path of conformity always leads to failure, and the path of individuality always leads to success. The difference is choice, and choice is yours. Here is a truth that may sound hard at first, but it explains the tragedy of most lives. Hard work by itself produces nothing of lasting value. Effort without direction is wasted motion. Labor without thought is exhaustion without reward. The mule works harder than the man, but the mule owns nothing. Day after day it pulls heavy loads, it strains its muscles, it sweats under the sun, and yet it remains where it began. No matter how hard it works, it never advances, it never chooses, it never possesses. And though we may smile at the mule, most men live no differently. They spend their years laboring harder and harder, believing that sheer effort will bring them success, only to discover at the end that all they have gained is weariness. Think of the laborer who spends 40 years on the job. He rises early, he works faithfully, he gives the best of his strength. Year after year he waits for the day when his labor will pay off, when he will retire with security. But when the time comes, what does he find? His savings are small, his body is tired, his opportunities are gone. He has spent a lifetime sweating, but he has built nothing. And the reason is simple: he worked without vision. He traded his time for wages, but never used his mind to create, to grow, to direct. He mistook motion for progress, effort for achievement, and in the end he reaped nothing more than the wages of survival. Now let's set the stakes. If you believe that working harder is the answer, you will live like the mule. You will labor without advancement, you will sweat without reward, and you will end your days with little more than weariness. But if you understand that effort must be guided by thought, that labor must be directed by vision, then your work begins to build something. You begin to use the power that separates you from the mule, imagination. For it is not the strength of your back, but the strength of your mind that creates wealth. Here's the truth. Work is necessary, but only when it is work in the right direction. A man digging holes all day may sweat as much as a man building a house, but at the end of the day one has nothing but empty pits, while the other has something that stands, something that grows, something that endures. The difference is not in the effort but in the purpose. One worked blindly, the other worked with vision. So let me ask you, are you working like the mule, laboring hard but gaining nothing? Or are you working like the builder, directing your effort with purpose, with goals, with vision? The answer will decide whether your life is a long exhaustion that ends with nothing, or a steady creation that ends with freedom. Hard work without direction guarantees failure. Hard work with direction guarantees success. The difference is thought, and thought is always yours to choose. Now here is the distinction that separates the few who rise to freedom from the many who end with nothing. The difference between labor and leverage. Labor alone is limited by time and strength. A man can only swing a hammer so many hours a day, he can only carry so many loads, he can only push his body so far, and when his strength is spent, his income stops. But leverage multiplies effort. It takes the same energy, the same mind, the same hours, and directs them in ways that create more than one man could ever produce by his labor alone. And this is why wealth never comes from mere labor. It comes from thought, from imagination, from service multiplied through leverage. Think of the man digging ditches with a shovel. He works hard, he sweats, he may even feel pride in his labor. But his progress is slow, his back grows weary, his future is tied to the hours he can endure. Now think of the man who designs a machine that digs ditches. He may work as hard in thought, in planning, in testing, but when his machine is built, one operator can do the work of 50 men. His effort has been multiplied, his idea has created leverage, and while the first man grows older and weaker, the second man grows wealthier, because his mind created something his muscles never could. Or picture the farmer who tills his field with bare hands, scratching the soil with primitive tools, harvesting barely enough to feed his family. Compare him with the farmer who studies, who experiments, who uses new methods of irrigation, fertilization, machinery. The first farmer lives in poverty, working himself to the bone, while the second grows abundance, selling to markets, building wealth. Both are farmers, both work hard, but one uses only labor while the other uses leverage. The difference is not the land or the weather, it is the mind. Now let's set the stakes clearly. If you rely only on labor, your income and your future will always be limited by your hours and your strength. You may work faithfully for decades and still end with nothing, because labor consumes but does not create. But if you learn to use leverage, if you use your imagination, your ideas, your ability to serve more people more effectively, then your effort multiplies. You are no longer paid for the hours you give, but for the value you create. And value can expand without limit. Here's the truth. Every man and woman has this choice. You can spend your life trading hours for wages, or you can spend your life finding ways to multiply value through thought, through creativity, through service. One path ends in exhaustion and emptiness, the other in growth and freedom. The law has never changed. Muscles may tire, but ideas never do. So let me ask you, are you relying on labor alone, or are you building leverage? Are you giving only your time, or are you giving your thought? The answer explains where you will stand at the end of your working life, broke with the 95, or free with the few. Now here is a truth that most men never learn, though it is the very key to wealth. Riches do not come from labor, they come from ideas. Every fortune that has ever been built, every invention that has ever changed the world, every advancement that has ever lifted mankind began first as a thought in someone's mind. It was not muscle that created the light bulb, or the telephone, or the automobile, or the airplane. It was imagination. It was an idea, clear and persistent, that took shape in the mind before it ever took form in the world. And once you see this, you realize that wealth is never created outside until it is first created inside. The seed is always an idea. Emerson once wrote, "A man is what he thinks about all day long." Marcus Aurelius, centuries earlier, said, "A man's life is dyed by the color of his thoughts." These men were not speaking in poetry, they were observing a law. Whatever you dwell on, you move toward. Whatever you give your mind to, you eventually give your life to. And when that thought is constructive, when it is directed toward service, toward solving problems, toward creating value, it becomes the seed of wealth. Thought is the raw material, the invisible cause that produces visible results. Think of Edison, working night after night, not with a stronger back than other men, but with a stronger vision. He saw in his mind's eye the light before it ever shone in the world. He imagined what others could not yet see. And because he held the idea, because he persisted, because he believed in the picture his imagination painted, he turned thought into reality. Millions of lives were changed, fortunes were created, industries were born, all from one idea, held faithfully by one man. Now let's set the stakes clearly. If you believe wealth comes only from labor, you will work until your strength is gone and still end with little. You will always be limited by your hours, by your muscles, by what you can do with your hands. But if you understand that wealth comes from ideas, then you realize that your mind is your greatest asset. It can create without limit. It can multiply beyond measure. A single idea, once put into action, can do more than decades of labor ever could. Here's the discipline. Begin keeping an idea notebook. Carry it with you. Each day, write down one idea for how you might serve better, how you might improve something, how you might solve a problem. Most of the ideas will be small. Many will never be used. But the practice of thinking, of planting seeds, will train your mind to create, and in time, one of those ideas may grow into something that changes your life. Remember, you are only one idea away from a fortune, one thought away from a breakthrough, one vision away from freedom. So let me ask you, what are you thinking about all day long? Are you dwelling on fear, on worry, on the routine? Or are you training your mind to think in terms of ideas, of solutions, of possibilities? The answer will explain the life you are building, because ideas are seeds, and your future is nothing more and nothing less than the harvest of what you plant in your mind. Now that we've seen that ideas are the true seeds of wealth, we must look at the soil in which those seeds grow. And that soil is service. The great law of compensation states that you are paid in direct proportion to the value you deliver to others. Not in proportion to the hours you put in, not in proportion to how hard you labor, but in proportion to the service you render. And this explains why some men seem to rise effortlessly, while others struggle endlessly. The difference is not luck, nor is it chance, it is service. The man who serves more people, more effectively, more faithfully, inevitably receives more in return. Think of the stove. It will give you heat, but only after you put in the wood. You cannot sit before a cold stove and demand warmth without first feeding it fuel. Yet this is how most people approach life. They want the reward before the effort, the pay before the service, the harvest before the planting. They wait for life to give them something while giving little themselves. And in the end, they are cold, they are broke, they are disappointed, because the stove never works backward, it always waits for wood before it gives heat, and so does life. Consider the businessman who asked himself not, "How much can I take?" but "How much can I give?" He built his enterprise around service, around solving problems, around adding value. At first, the returns were small. But as he refined his service, as he reached more people, as he gave more than he was paid for, something remarkable happened. His business grew, his reputation grew, his wealth grew, and the reason was simple. Life always rewards service. The more you give, the more you receive. The man who goes the extra mile, who adds something beyond the minimum, who delivers value others do not, rises inevitably, because he has aligned himself with the law of compensation. Now, let's set the stakes clearly. If you focus only on what you can get, you will always come up short. You will be frustrated, disappointed, resentful. But if you focus on what you can give, you will always receive more than you expect. It may not come instantly, it may not come directly, but it will come inevitably, because the law never fails. Service multiplies, and what you send out returns. Here's the discipline. Each day, ask yourself, how can I add more value today than I am paid for? How can I serve better, more fully, more faithfully? It may be something small, an extra effort, a kind word, a thoughtful detail, or it may be something large, an innovation, a system, a service that reaches many. Whatever it is, do it. For every time you add service, you are planting seeds that will one day return to you multiplied. So let me ask you, are you waiting for the stove to give heat, or are you feeding it fuel? Are you measuring your life by what you receive, or by what you give? The answer explains your present and predicts your future. Because wealth is not the reward of labor alone. It is the reward of ideas put into service. And service, faithfully rendered, never fails to pay dividends far greater than the effort required. Now that we've seen how wealth flows from ideas and service, we must face another truth that determines whether those ideas and that service amount to anything: the need for definite aims. Without clear direction, no amount of work, no amount of talent, no amount of good intentions can carry a person to success. A ship without a captain may have the finest crew, the strongest engines, the best supplies, but if it has no destination, it will drift endlessly. It will waste fuel, it will wear down, it will go in circles, and in the end, it will arrive nowhere. And that is exactly what happens to the majority of people. They live, they labor, they spend their years busy, even exhausted, but because they never set a definite aim, their lives drift into nothingness. I once knew of a lawyer who achieved all the things men usually call success. He had wealth, he had a fine home, he had prestige, he had clients who respected him. But somewhere along the way he realized that though he had worked hard and reached the level he had once imagined, he had no new aim beyond it. His days grew empty. He drifted, restless, unsatisfied, and eventually his health broke down. Why? Because a man cannot live on past achievements. He must always be moving toward something new. Without a definite aim before him, his energy decays, his spirit withers, his life loses meaning. Now let's set the stakes clearly. If you do not have a definite aim, then no matter how hard you work, you are drifting. You may feel busy, you may feel tired, you may even appear successful for a time, but beneath it all, you are like the ship circling in the fog. And when the years pass, you will find that you have spent yourself in motion without ever arriving anywhere. But once you fix an aim, once you choose a destination, everything changes. Your imagination rallies around it, your energy flows toward it, your actions align with it. You may not know every step, you may face storms and delays, but as long as the aim is clear, you will continue to move forward. Here's the discipline. Take the time to decide what you really want. Not what others expect, not what the crowd is chasing, not what seems easiest, but what you truly desire as a worthy aim. Write it down, fix it in your mind, carry it with you. That aim will give you direction, and direction is the difference between motion and progress. So let me ask you, do you know where you are going, or are you drifting with the majority? Do you have a clear aim that calls you forward, or are you letting the years slip by without purpose? The answer explains why some lives end full, rich, and satisfied, while others end empty despite decades of labor. The difference is not chance, it is choice. And the choice begins with a definite aim. Now, it is not enough merely to have an aim. A man may aim for wealth alone, for recognition, for comfort, and yet discover when he arrives that his life feels empty, hollow, and unsatisfying. That is why I have long said that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Notice the two parts of that definition. First, it is progressive. It is not a static possession, but a continual unfolding, a moving forward, a journey of growth. Second, it is a worthy ideal, not just any aim, not just any desire, but something noble, something meaningful, something that uplifts the man who pursues it and benefits others in the process. Without worthiness, an aim becomes a trap. It may give wealth, but it cannot give fulfillment. It may bring recognition, but not peace. Only a worthy ideal can satisfy the mind, the spirit, and the life. Think of the teacher who devotes herself to shaping young minds. She may never earn vast sums of money, but she lives in the daily realization of a worthy ideal. Every lesson she gives, every child she helps, every seed she plants in the soil of another's mind is progress toward her goal. Or think of the mother who raises her children with love, who gives them strength, who shapes their character. That too is success, for it is the progressive realization of an ideal worthy of her devotion. Or think of the small shopkeeper who takes pride in serving his community faithfully, giving honest value, treating his customers as friends. Though his business may be modest, his life is success because it is built around a worthy aim. Now, let's set the stakes clearly. If you choose an unworthy aim, if you chase money without meaning, or position without purpose, or pleasure without responsibility, you may work hard and you may achieve what you sought, but in the end you will discover that you have nothing of substance. You will be rich in possessions and poor in satisfaction. But if you choose a worthy ideal, then every step becomes progress, every day becomes meaningful, every effort becomes success, regardless of how far you have yet to go. Here's the discipline. Define your ideal. Write it in one clear sentence. Carry it with you. Let it guide your decisions, your habits, your daily actions. Do not wait until circumstances are perfect. Begin now. Success is not only in the achievement at the end, but in the deliberate movement toward a goal that is worthy of your life. Once you know your worthy ideal, you are already successful, because you are no longer drifting, you are moving deliberately, and progress itself is victory. So let me ask you, have you defined your ideal? Is it worthy of your life, your time, your energy, your years? Or are you drifting after the shallow aims of the crowd, chasing shadows that will vanish when the years pass? The difference between an empty life and a fulfilling one is this: the crowd never defines their ideal. The few do. And in that single act of definition, they step out of the 95 and join the 5 who succeed. Now that we have seen the necessity of a worthy aim, we must turn to the raw material of life itself, the one resource given equally to all men, and yet the one that most squander without thought. That resource is time. Time is life. Each day you are handed a new account, deposited freshly into your keeping, and what you do with it decides everything. Imagine that you have a bank that credits your account with $86,400 every morning. You must spend it that day, for anything left unused disappears when the clock strikes midnight. No carryover, no saving, no second chance. You would be careful with such an account, would you not? You would guard it, you would plan its use, you would make sure every dollar worked for you. And yet, each morning life gives you exactly that 86,400 seconds to be spent or wasted. And what do most men do with this treasure? They let it slip through their fingers. They waste it in idleness, in distractions, in meaningless activity. And at the end of the day, the account is empty and they have nothing to show. Think of the man who rises without plan, who lets the day carry him as it will. He answers whatever calls come, he drifts from one small task to another, he fills his hours with noise, with amusement, with small talk. He feels busy, he feels occupied, but when night comes he has built nothing, he has advanced nowhere, he has invested nothing in his future. Multiply that day by a week, that week by a month, that month by a year, and you see why he ends with nothing. A life wasted one day at a time is a life wasted altogether. And the saddest part is, he does not even see it happening. He believes that because he is tired, because he has been active, he has been productive. But fatigue is not progress. Busyness is not achievement. Without deliberate use, time slips away unnoticed, and once it is gone forever. Now let's set the stakes clearly. Money lost can be regained. Opportunities missed may return again. But time wasted is lost beyond recall. The seconds that tick by are your very life, dissolving into the past, never to be recovered. And most men, unaware of its value, trade it for nothing. They waste hours each day that, if used wisely, could build mastery, could build wealth, could build freedom. They spend their lives as though time were cheap, and when it runs out, they discover it was the most expensive treasure of all. Here's the discipline. Begin to account for your time as carefully as you would your money. Ask yourself at the end of each day, what did I do with my 86,400 seconds? What seeds did I plant? What progress did I make? You may be shocked at how much is wasted. But once you see it, you can change it. You can begin to direct your hours deliberately, to invest them in study, in planning, in building, in serving. Even 1 hour a day, used with purpose, becomes a fortune when compounded over years. So let me ask you, how are you spending your daily account? Are you investing it in your future, or are you throwing it away on trifles? Your life is nothing more than the sum of your days, and your days are nothing more than the sum of your hours. Waste them, and you waste your life. Guard them, and you build a future. The choice, as always, is yours. Now that we understand why most people waste their days, we must look at the other side of the law, the extraordinary power that is hidden in even the smallest daily investment when it is carried out consistently over time. Because time, when used wisely, compounds. 1 hour a day may seem insignificant, a drop in the bucket, hardly worth notice. But string those hours together over years, and you will find that 1 hour a day, invested deliberately, can transform an ordinary man into an expert, can lift a life from poverty to prosperity, can turn a drifting soul into a master of his destiny. Consider the man who decides to devote 1 hour each day to the study of his chosen field. 1 hour, not 10, not 5, only 1. At first the results are invisible. After a week, after a month, little seems to change. But after a year he has given himself more than 300 hours of study. That is the equivalent of several college courses. After 5 years, he has given himself 1,500 hours. He has read dozens of books, absorbed countless ideas, sharpened his understanding far beyond the average man. And after 10 years he stands as a master in his field, recognized as an authority, equipped with knowledge that few possess. And all of it came from one simple habit, 1 hour a day. That is the power of compounding time. Contrast him with the man who spends that same hour each day in front of a screen, lost in idle amusement. 10 years pass, and he is no further than he was before. He has gained nothing, built nothing, advanced nowhere. He has simply traded away the most valuable resource he had for nothing at all. The difference between the two men is not talent, not opportunity, not even effort. It is the use of time. One compounded it, the other wasted it. And in the end, their lives stand as proof of the law. Time invested multiplies, time wasted vanishes. Now let's set the stakes clearly. If you use even 1 hour a day deliberately, you can remake your life. You can master a skill, build a business, deepen your understanding, grow in ways you cannot yet imagine. But if you waste that hour, if you let it slip away day after day, then the years will pass, and you will find yourself no further than where you began, except older and weaker. The compounding effect will work either way for you or against you. Invest it, and it will return wealth. Waste it, and it will leave you with nothing. Here's the discipline. Choose one pursuit, one area of growth, one skill, one field of study, and give it 1 hour a day. Guard that hour. Protect it as you would a treasure. Do it faithfully, whether you feel like it or not. And then watch what happens. At first, you will see nothing. Then, slowly, results will appear. And in time, you will find that you have built something extraordinary out of the smallest of investments. That is the miracle of compounding time. So let me ask you, what will you do with your 1 hour Will you let it be wasted year after year, or will you invest it day after day until it builds you into the person you are meant to be? The answer will decide your future. For time is the currency of life, and whether you waste it or compound it, you will reap exactly what you have sown. Now we come to what I have often called the magic word, the one factor that colors every experience, opens or closes every opportunity, and determines, more than almost anything else, whether a man ends his life with abundance or with nothing. That word is attitude. Your attitude is the lens through which you see the world, and just as importantly, it is the lens through which the world sees you. It is invisible, yet it is unmistakable. People feel it the moment you enter a room, they sense it in your words, they detect it in your actions, and life, in turn, mirrors it back to you. A poor attitude creates poor results. A great attitude creates great results. Attitude is the switch that turns the law of cause and effect either for you or against you. I remember a story of a couple who moved to Florida. They had come for the sunshine, the beaches, the promise of a slower and more pleasant life. The husband thrived. He rose each day, grateful for the brightness of the sun, pleased with the warmth of the air, delighted with the slower pace of living. To him, Florida was paradise. But the wife was miserable. She complained about the heat, she criticized the people, she found fault with the very things her husband enjoyed. To her, Florida was unbearable. Now here is the lesson. Both lived in the same house, under the same sky, surrounded by the same neighbors. But one lived in heaven, the other in hell. What was the difference? Attitude. Now let's set the stakes clearly. If your attitude is negative, fearful, resentful, then no matter how hard you work, you will sabotage your own progress. Opportunities will close themselves to you, people will avoid you, life will seem to resist you at every turn. But if your attitude is positive, confident, grateful, then even in difficulty, doors will open. People will be drawn to you, problems will reveal solutions, life itself will rise to meet you. The difference is not in the world outside, it is in the spirit you carry within. Here's the discipline. Each day, deliberately set your attitude before you step into the world. Don't leave it to chance. Don't let circumstances decide it for you. Choose it yourself. Begin the day with gratitude, with expectancy, with confidence. Carry it into your work, into your conversations, into your challenges. And then watch how life reflects it back to you. You'll see that attitude is not a small thing, it is everything. It is the unseen force shaping your world, moment by moment, day by day. So let me ask you, what attitude have you been carrying? Has it opened doors or closed them? Has it lifted you up or weighed you down? If you don't like the harvest, change the seed. If you don't like the reflection, change the face you present to the mirror. Because life is always reflecting your attitude, and once you master it, you hold in your hand the magic word that turns failure into success, emptiness into abundance, and despair into hope. Now, if attitude is the magic word, expectancy is its most powerful expression. Expectancy is the quiet conviction that life will give you what you believe is coming. It is not a weak hope, not a wish whispered in passing, but a deep and steady assurance that tomorrow holds good, that progress is certain, that the seeds you have planted must yield a harvest in their season. And here is the remarkable thing. Expectancy draws to you what you anticipate. It acts like a magnet. When you expect failure, you unconsciously create it. When you expect success, you unconsciously prepare for it. Life has a way of meeting you at the level of your expectations. Think of two men who begin the same day with the same opportunities before them. The first expects little. He believes the world is against him, that opportunities never come his way, that luck always passes him by. And so, he approaches each moment with suspicion, with hesitation, with gloom. And what happens? The very things he expected appear. People respond coldly to him, difficulties seem heavier than they are, and when chances for advancement arrive, he overlooks them or lets them slip by, convinced they were never meant for him anyway. The second man expects success. He believes that life is on his side, that good is coming, that opportunity will meet him if he is ready. And so he approaches each moment with openness, with confidence, with gratitude. And what happens? People respond warmly to him, problems become challenges he can solve, opportunities appear where others saw nothing at all. Same day, same conditions, but two entirely different outcomes because expectancy shaped the way each man met the world, and the world mirrored it back to them. William James once said that the greatest discovery of his generation was that a man can change his life by changing his attitude. Expectancy is that principle in action. What you expect is what you prepare for, and what you prepare for is what you move toward. If you expect failure, you will notice every reason to stop, every excuse to quit, every obstacle as proof that you were right. But if you expect success, you will notice every reason to continue, every resource that can help, every small sign of progress as proof that you are on the right path. Life has not changed, your expectancy has. And because of that, your results do too. Now let's set the stakes clearly. If you expect little, you will receive little. If you expect difficulty, you will find it everywhere. If you expect decline, you will create it. But if you expect growth, you will grow. If you expect opportunity, you will find it. If you expect abundance, you will see ways to create it. Expectancy turns your imagination into a guide instead of an enemy. It points you toward solutions instead of problems, toward opportunities instead of excuses. Here's the discipline. For the next 30 days, deliberately choose to expect the best. Each morning, tell yourself, today I expect to see progress. Today I expect opportunity. Today I expect life to reward my efforts. Carry that spirit into your work, into your dealings, into your thoughts. At first, you may feel foolish, because the habit of doubt runs deep. But keep at it. Soon you'll begin to notice small changes. A task turns out easier than you imagined. A person responds more kindly than you expected. A door opens where you thought there was only a wall. And as these confirmations build, your expectancy will grow stronger. It will become your natural outlook, and life will meet you at the level of your faith. So let me ask you, what are you expecting right now? Are you expecting failure or success, scarcity or abundance, decline or growth? Whatever your answer, that is the future you are preparing. For expectancy is not idle, it is creative, it is law. And once you choose it wisely, it will act as a magnet, drawing to you the life you have already chosen in your mind. Now we come to one of the most overlooked truths of all, the one that explains why so many begin with high hopes but end with nothing, why so many plant seeds but never reap a harvest. That truth is endurance. Life rewards persistence. The law of cause and effect never fails, but it often takes time, and because of that, most people give up too soon. They plant their seed, they water it for a season, they watch for results, and when nothing appears quickly enough, they abandon the field. They walk away convinced the seed was no good, or the soil was poor, or that fate is against them. But the truth is that the harvest was still growing unseen beneath the surface, waiting for its season. And because they did not endure, they never received it. Think of Thomas Edison. He made thousands of attempts before finding the right filament for the electric light. Thousands. Imagine the patience, the persistence, the endurance it required to keep going night after night, failure after failure. Most men would have stopped after the first dozen attempts. Others might have gone 100, perhaps a few might have reached 1,000. But Edison pressed on, refusing to quit because he understood the law. Each failure brought him closer to success. Each setback eliminated one more wrong path and pointed him toward the right one. And because he endured, he not only found the answer, he transformed the world. His name is remembered not because he was lucky or gifted, but because he refused to quit. Now contrast this with the miner who gave up 3 feet from gold. He worked, he sweated, he struggled, but when the vein did not appear as quickly as he hoped, he stopped. He sold his claim to another, who dug just a little deeper and struck the very fortune the first man had abandoned. The difference between the two was not in opportunity or talent, it was in endurance. One pressed on until he found the reward, the other gave up when it was closest at hand, and that is the story of most people. They give up at the edge of success, mistaking delay for denial, mistaking waiting for failure. Now let's set the stakes clearly. If you quit too soon, you guarantee failure, that is certain. No matter how much seed you planted, no matter how faithfully you labored, if you stop short, you will reap nothing. But if you endure, if you continue steadily, if you hold on through discouragement, through fatigue, through delay, then success becomes inevitable. The law of cause and effect does not fail. It may test your patience, it may demand your persistence, but if you refuse to quit, the harvest must come. Here's the discipline. Decide in advance that you will endure. Make persistence a habit as natural as breathing. When fear whispers that you are wasting your time, remember that fear is only imagination misused. When doubt tells you that results will never come, remind yourself that the law is certain. When discouragement presses hard, remind yourself that the harvest is still growing, even if you cannot yet see it. And hold steady. Endurance is the bridge between sowing and reaping, the proof of faith, the secret of all who succeed. So let me ask you, where in your life are you tempted to give up? Where have you planted seeds but grown impatient for the harvest? Will you abandon the field and end with nothing, or will you endure until the season comes? The answer will decide everything. For success belongs not to the brilliant, not to the fortunate, but to the persistent. Endurance is the difference between a wasted life and a fruitful one, between emptiness and abundance, between those who end with nothing and those who reap the reward. Now there is one more truth about persistence that must be understood if we are to avoid the fate of those who work all their lives and end with nothing, and that is this: failure itself can become strength, if only we endure it. The storms of life are not sent to destroy us, but to deepen our roots, to make us stronger, to prepare us for the greater harvest ahead. Every difficulty, every setback, every disappointment carries within it the seed of benefit, if only we refuse to quit. But most people never see this. They stumble, they fall, and instead of learning, they surrender. Instead of asking what the storm was meant to teach, they curse it, and in doing so they rob themselves of its gift. Think of the oak tree standing in the field. If the winds never blew, if the storms never came, its roots would remain shallow, its trunk weak, its branches fragile. The first heavy storm would topple it. But because the storms come year after year, bending it, pressing it, shaking it, the roots dig deeper, the trunk hardens, the branches grow strong. And in time, the very force that once threatened its existence becomes the reason for its strength. So it is with us. Without trials, without setbacks, without resistance, we would remain shallow, fragile, untested. But with them, if we endure, we grow deep, we grow strong, we grow unshakable. I once knew of a businessman who lost everything. His fortune collapsed, his reputation was damaged, his confidence was shaken. At first, he thought it was the end. But instead of surrendering, he began again. And this time he built more wisely, more carefully, more securely. He avoided the mistakes he had once made, he valued the lessons he had learned, and his new enterprise grew stronger than the one he had lost. He later said that losing everything had been the making of him, because it taught him lessons he could never have learned in comfort. His failure became his foundation, his setback became his teacher, and his new success stood on ground that could not have been reached without the storm. Now let's set the stakes clearly. If you see failure as the end, then it will be the end. If you see setbacks as defeat, they will defeat you. But if you see them as lessons, as refinement, as preparation, then every difficulty becomes part of your success. The law never denies you, it only delays until you are ready. The storm is not life's way of rejecting you, but of strengthening you for what lies ahead. Here's the discipline. The next time you stumble, the next time a plan fails, the next time a door closes, do not say, "I am finished." Instead say, "I am being strengthened. I am being prepared. I will rise again, wiser and stronger than before." Write down the lesson, hold it, apply it, and then move forward. In time, you will find that what once seemed like a crushing defeat was only a turning point, a foundation stone, a root deepening in the soil. So let me ask you, what setback are you facing now? Are you letting it break you, or are you letting it build you? The choice is yours, as it always has been, and once you choose to turn failure into strength, you will never again fear difficulty. For you will know that every storm carries within it the very gift you need to grow. We have traveled a long road together in this lesson, And before we part, I want you to see the whole picture as clearly as I can paint it. The tragedy of life is not that men and women work, for work is noble and necessary. The tragedy is that most work all their lives and end with nothing. They give their years, their strength, their best efforts, and yet arrive at the end empty-handed, weary, and dependent. Not because the world is cruel, not because opportunity was absent, but because they never learned the laws that govern success. They labored, but they labored without direction. They were busy, but they were not building. They followed the crowd, and the crowd was drifting. And because they never chose deliberately, their fate was chosen for them. But you have seen now what makes the difference. You have seen that hard work alone is not enough, for effort without direction is wasted. You have seen that ideas are the seeds of wealth, and service is the measure of pay. You have seen that goals give direction, that worthy ideals give meaning, that time is the currency of life, and that its compounding power can make or break a man depending on how he spends it. You have seen that attitude is the magic word, shaping every experience, and that expectancy acts as a magnet, drawing to you what you believe is coming. And you have seen that persistence, endurance, and the courage to turn failure into strength are what carry a man from sowing to harvest. These are not theories, they are not wishes. They are laws, as certain as gravity, as sure as the rising Sunday. They have worked for every man and woman who has applied them, and they will work for you. So let me give you this affirmation. You are not paid for the hours you put in, you are paid for the value you bring. You are not rewarded for effort alone, but for effort directed by thought, by imagination, by service, by persistence. If you remember this, if you begin to apply it, then you will separate yourself from the 95 who end with nothing and join the few who live with independence, with freedom, with fulfillment. The choice is yours. You need not drift with the crowd. You can choose your path, define your ideal, guard your time, set your attitude, persist through difficulty, and build a life that ends in abundance. Here is my challenge to you. For the next 30 days, put these principles to the test. Write down one clear goal. Guard your thoughts against fear and doubt. Use 1 hour a day to grow in knowledge, in skill, in understanding. Begin each morning by setting your attitude and expecting the best. Persist when it grows difficult. Look for the lesson in every setback. And above all, ask yourself daily, how can I serve more? How can I give more value than I am paid for? Do this for 30 days faithfully, and you will prove to yourself beyond doubt that your life bends to the direction of your thoughts, your habits, your expectations. You will know that you are not doomed to end with nothing, but destined to reap abundantly if you sow abundantly. And let me open a door for you. In our next lesson, we will look at the hidden power of compounding growth, how small, steady acts of thought, of discipline, of service, of faith, multiply into results beyond anything you could imagine. Once you see that principle clearly, you will never again underestimate the power of a single day, a single choice, a single thought. But for now, remember this one truth. Most people work all their lives and end with nothing. But you don't have to. Choose differently. Live deliberately. Use the laws that never fail. And you will find that at the end of your life, your hands are not empty, but full of freedom, full of peace, full of abundance, and full of the satisfaction of a life well lived.